guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel if you're new here. Hi, my name is Jessi, also known as Miss Cherry, and I'm so excited that you are here today. Recently, I did a pin video where I did a big pin haul, and several of you said that you wanted to see more pin videos. And so since it's the spooky season or the Halloween season, I thought it would be a great opportunity to share my extensive Ursula collection. And I'm wearing the cutest, I really need to show you guys this, the cutest headband that is Flotsam and Jetsam that was made by my friend Awesome Jossum. I will link Jossum's channel down below. He handmade these for me, and they are one of the most cutest handmade items I've ever received. So thanks, Jossum, for doing that. And this is perfect to wear it for my Ursula pin board video. So thank you, Jossum, for providing the cutest accessory for this video ever. But I have been collecting pins for several years, and my Ursula collection has kind of been a bit of a labor of love. Ursula pins are, they can be a bit pricey and they can be a bit hard to come by because I think they're very much in demand. Most of my pin board is made up of fantasy pins. So for those of you that don't know, fantasy pins are actually not Disney licensed. They're created by independent artists that do not have Disney licensing. And so they're creating them themselves and producing them themselves without the Disney copyright logo on them. So you'll see a lot of those pins in here, but I'm going to try to link all of the information of all of the pin designers that I know of down below. And I'm definitely going to need your guys' help because I get a lot of these pins off of Disney Pin live sales, which are on Instagram. Sometimes they're on Facebook, but that's where I grow most of my collection from. So I'm gonna be going into this pin board. Actually, half of it is King Triton. Don't mind that side. Hashtag daddy though. And then the other half is all Ursula, and I'm going to flip the camera and I'm gonna show you my entire Ursula collection, and I hope you guys absolutely love it. So let's go ahead and check out this pin board. Here's an overall look at my Ursula / King Triton or Daddy pin board. I have it cut in a diagonal motion. So on this side is Ursula Vanessa, and on that side is King Triton and all of his daughters, including all of Ariel's sisters down here at the bottom. But we are going to focus solely on my Ursula collection, mainly because we are celebrating Halloween. So we're going to go ahead and get started and do a little bit closer look at these pins. Now, I do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. Most all of my pins are Disney fantasy pins, and occasionally on the back of Disney fantasy pins there is not information on who the designer is. If I have that information, I will obviously leave it for you or talk about it as we're going through this video. But if I don't have it, I may be able to find it. Sometimes they are very hard to find as far as who makes the pins themselves. So why don't we go ahead and get into it, and we're going to start here at this bottom corner. We're going to start with this beautiful fantasy pin. This pin is from Disney Chris, and Disney Chris is a fantasy pin seller that created this collection called Rival Reflections. And you will see a couple of these pins actually in my Ursula collection. But we have Ursula and then also King Triton, or Daddy as we call him on the channel. And there's little bubbles all the way in the back of the pin, and she's holding her contract and he's holding his trident. I think this is so well done. I just love all of the little speckles and the little bubbles. She did a great job on this collection. I absolutely love this pin. It's so pretty. And right next to that is actually a keychain. It's not a pin, forgive me, but I think it's so beautiful and so unique that it deserves to be on the Ursula and Vanessa pin board, because it is the contract that Ariel actually signs and gives to Ursula, along with the little fish bone pin. And it says, "I hereby grant unto Ursula, the Witch of the Sea, one voice for all eternity, signed Ariel." And this is actually from the company called the Attractioneering Trading Company, and I will link their information down below. They have a lot of unique fantasy pins as well as cool like keychains and different things like that. So kind of a fun little element to add to this pin board. Now, moving on, this is actually an open edition pin that was from, I believe, 2005.
yeah, I think it was from 2005. It's an old one. It doesn't have a Mickey waffle back. That's how old it is. And it's got little boats around it. It's got some little tentacles here. And then it's got Eric and Ariel swirling around her as she becomes that giant sea witch in the ending scene of Little Mermaid. Now, to go along with the contract, we have another pin. This is an authentic Disney pin that does have the contract as well, and it says Disney's The Little Mermaid, and it says underneath that 1989, which is the year of the film that came out. There are some glitter elements to this. This is an LE of 1500, and I just think it's so pretty. Moving on to this stunning pin. This pin is a silhouette collection. It's actually a fantasy pin. And yes, it may look very familiar. Disney did come out with a silhouette collection for all of the princesses. And this fantasy pin seller did off-the-wall characters like Stitch and also a lot of the villains as a play off of that collection. What I love about it, it's got these really beautiful blue elements. So it's got the blue contract. That's why it's in the contract section. And then it's got a poor unfortunate soul. And then there's actual rhinestones on this pin, which is so pretty. This is a stained glass element, the light blue in the back. And then you've got the silhouettes of also Flotsam and Jetsam there, which I think is just super duper fun. Moving on, we're going to go up a little bit. This is actually from the Disney Studio Store Hollywood. This is an open edition authentic Disney pin that I got while I was at the Ghirardelli shop. It was such a fun experience to go there, and every time I see this, it reminds me of going there because when we went there, there was an actual premiere going on in downtown Hollywood, which we had never seen before. I had never seen before. It was such a cool experience, and I love that Ursula is actually walking the red carpet. It was very reminiscent of that night. Not only did we get to see a movie premiere happening, but we also had the opportunity to go and watch Little Mermaid at the Hollywood Bowl be performed, and Alan Menken was actually there. It was a night to remember. Okay, moving on, we're gonna go laterally here. So this is a Haunting Halloween pin from 2017. This was an LE of 4500, and this was picked up when I was in Disney World for my 2017 annual Halloween trip. Next, we have a small Ursula with little bubbles around her. Now, this is an open edition pin. I don't know the history behind it, but she's pretty darn cute. And then moving on, this is a really neat pin. This is actually from a booster set, and the booster set is a silhouette of each of the villains and then a picture of them inside of the silhouette. So as you may see, there's the Ursula silhouette there, and then her cackling face. Like, look at that facial expression. I love when you can see her fangs. That's one of my favorite little elements about Ursula. So that is just such a cool pin. In this set, they also have a really neat Hades. So if you're a Hades fan, you may want to check out this booster set. It's available in the parks. Next, we're going to move on to this really beautiful pin, one of the most rare pins that I have. It's a limited edition of 100, and it is an actual authentic Disney pin that was made by Acme Pins, which Acme is no longer affiliated with Disney. They have changed their name. They may still be affiliated. I take that back, but they did have some sort of name change. But this pin is so beautiful. She looks like she has been painted onto this pin, and I just love pins with bubbles, and so I just really appreciate the details and the work that went into this beautiful pin. Definitely one of my most rare authentic Disney pins in my entire collection. Now, right next to her, we have this Mermaid Lagoon pin that has a dangle element on it, and it's got Ursula kind of peeping over to her right side, and it looks like she is actually looking into a mirror that looks like the mirror from her Poor Unfortunate Souls scene. And this is an open edition authentic Disney pin. I don't know a lot about it. It's pre-waffle back, so that means that it's an older authentic Disney pin. Moving down here, we have Salty, which was part of an Oh My Disney pin set. And this set was available at Disney stores and also on Shop Disney, and they came out with that last year. Next, we have the Alphabet Ursula, and she obviously was for the letter U, and she looks so sassy and fun here. I really like how they detailed her mullet very nicely here, so you can see the party in the back, which I appreciate. And I don't believe that this is a limited edition, but it is a really fun pin set, actually. Moving on, this is a faux stained glass Ariel and Ursula pin. I believe that this is from Holler Fantasy Pins. I will pop it up on the screen if I am incorrect, but this pin is so fun. It features Ariel in her blue dress, which is one of my most favorite forms. It's a very, very unique pin. I appreciate the faux stained glass. I think it's a really neat and interesting touch. Now, this next pin is another fantasy pin. I actually purchased it on Etsy, and I will leave the pin seller's information here, but this was their ugly Christmas sweater collection, and as you can tell, this is the Ursula form, and it has Flotsam and Jetsam, and it has the crown and the trident. It's also got that contract. It's such a unique and different pin. I definitely had to add it to my Ursula collection. Love that. Next is a hidden Mickey pin. This is a scrapper pin. However, I have not been able to find the authentic pin. I love bowling. You'll have to let me know down below if you're a big fan of bowling, but I really love bowling, and I just, I wanted to leave it there until, as a placeholder, until I can get the authentic pin. But you can definitely tell there's definitely some flaws and some miscoloration, which is a bit unfortunate, but we have a scrapper, which is okay. Sometimes that happens. Right next to that scrapper pin, we have the Ursula Backpack Pin. This was from a mystery pin set that came out, I believe, in 2018. This was a really fun one. They had lots of fun and different backpacks. This was a little bit, well, maybe it was at the beginning of the Loungefly backpack craze, and I think Disney realized that and made that happen, which was kind of fun. And then next to that is this Grin's Hidden Mickey collection that is an authentic pin, and I really love that it just illuminates her double chin. Like, that is everything. And then right next to that is another Hidden Mickey pin, and this is the sketch collection that they did for Hidden Mickeys, and this was the Ursula sketch, and they all had green backgrounds like this, and then they were sketched on there. The character is sketched on to the front, which is super cute. The next pin here is actually a Villains Cameo collection pin. And what's really interesting about this pin, it does have like 2 little rhinestones on it. I think this is such a unique and interesting pin. You hardly ever see cameo style pins, but they are one of my most favorite designs, mainly because they remind me of my mom. My mom loves cameos, and so I just think this is super cool. It's an LE of 3,000, and as you may see, Flotsam and Jetsam are surrounding the cameo here, and then there's also a V for Disney Villain. Next, we have an open edition pin. This is an open edition Ursula pin that came out, I believe, a few years ago. I think I got it in 2019 or late 2018, one of the two. Love her red fingernails and how this pin really illuminates her makeup. Now, speaking of makeup, this is a pin that is a fantasy pin that I got on Etsy that is the little shrimp that Ursula uses for her lipstick. I love it so much. I think it's so unique and so cute. And it's definitely like a
deep-seated portion of my pin board. You definitely have to be a Little Mermaid stan to be able to like see and understand and remember what that is from. So I just thought that was really fun. Now on to the piece de resistance of my lower part of my pin collection outside of this pin here. This is the next most amazing. This is the Eye of the Beholder pin. It is a fantasy pin, and this is from Holler Pin Design, and eye meaning this is like the iris of what they thought that Ursula's eye would be, and she has look at this face. The details in this pin and the shadowing of her as a character is immaculate. Like, I've shown this pin on the channel before, but I just feel like showing it on camera just does not do it justice. Such a cool pin, one of my favorites in my entire collection. Moving on to these smaller Ursula pins here. This is an Ursula pin that's an open edition pin from Disneyland Paris, and what I love is she's like clutching that little shell that has Ariel's voice in it. Such a cool pin. I love when they have a pin that has an alternative view of a character, because a lot of times Disney authentic pins are just Ursula straight on. And then this is another Ursula pin, speaking of looking straight on. And this is an authentic pin, another Acme pin, so from the Acme company, but it is Disney licensed. It's not my most favorite pin. I feel like her coloration is a little bit off, but I do love Acme as a company, and so I added it to my collection for that. Moving on to the voice section of the pin board. So this is the shell that holds her voice, also with the little hands that come out and take the voice from her. I just thought this was such an interesting depiction. And then it's got Ursula's tentacles coming out of the back of it. So interesting and so fun. Let's see. The back is completely blank, so I unfortunately do not know who the pin seller is on that one, but it is a pretty fun and unique pin. Is another voice pin. This was released, I believe, in 2015, and it's an LE of 1000, and it says a surprise pin on the back, so this was a surprise release. And I think it's so unique. This is a pin-on-pin element, so Ariel is a little bit in the forefront, and I just love how Ursula looks in this. It's so evil and so lovely. I do also like the blue in the background. It's a very dynamic pin for how small this pin is. And then moving up, this was from a mystery pin box set that came out a few years ago, and this is that moment where she says your voice, and I just love this captured moment. It very much looks like a comic strip to me, which I really, really enjoy. And so there's the little voice section of our pin board that's Ursula style. We'll get to a voice section of the pin board that is actually Vanessa, but I want to show you a couple of miscellaneous pins on the way over to our Flotsam and Jetsam collection. So this pin was purchased last year. It's a gunmetal gray, which I love, a gunmetal gray and a pin. I think it's so dynamic looking. And what you've got Flotsam and Jetsam here, and then also the shell that keeps Ariel's voice. And this is a hinge pin, and it says, "You poor unfortunate soul." And as you'll probably notice, it does have a spider on it, and that is because this was meant to be a Halloween pin. However, I feel like it fits my Ursula board just fine, so that's why it's on my Ursula board and not on my Halloween board. Next, we have this Ursula pin that was a pin with purchase that was from several years ago, and it has the Disneyland logo on the back. So apparently you could purchase something and then you would get this pin with your purchase. This one says spells for evil sea witches, lockets, and their charms. So it makes me wonder if this may have came with like a charm bracelet or something along those lines. I don't know, pretty interesting. But if you know anything about this pin, please leave that information down below. I would love to know a little bit more about it. There is another open edition Ursula pin where she's looking into her crystal ball. I don't know a lot about this pin other than I
believe I purchased it in 2017. Now we're going to move on to the Flotsam and Jetsam portion of the pin board. This is such an interesting pin. It just really spoke to me. I just had never seen anything like it. It is all the gang inside Prince Eric's cannery sardine can. And it's got Ariel and Ursula and Flounder and Sebastian and then Flotsam and Jetsam. I don't know who the fantasy pin seller is, but this was such a different and unique, fun pin. Here is another Holler fantasy pin, and this one is very unique. It looks like Ursula is sitting on a throne that was created for her out of seashells and some coral maybe, and then Flotsam and Jetsam are on each side of her. She's got a really fun and interesting expression in this. I really enjoyed this pin and thought it had a lot of really unique details. Here's another pin that shows Ursula's fangs, which is, again, my favorite element of Ursula. And she has Flotsam and Jetsam around her like she's wearing a scarf. This was an open edition pin, authentic Disney pin. Moving on. Okay, so this pin I recently purchased from eBay. It is a fantasy pin, and I thought that it showed the details of Flotsam and Jetsam beautifully in such a small pin. Typically, you don't get that much detail, and so I really appreciated the artistry that went in to all of the detail. They really got their faces so right in this pin, and I absolutely love it. Now, moving on, this is a really cute and fun pin from Oh My Disney. Oh My Disney is affiliated with Shop Disney. They do a lot of really cool and unique, fun designs. And they did a Flotsam and Jetsam pin last year that has a little dangle element that is a lightning bolt, which is so cute because they're electric eels. Oh, I love it. I just think that is so clever. And moving on, this is the Flotsam and Jetsam pin, this one here in the center. And this was actually from the Fairy Tales pin event that I went to last year. And it does have a dangle element that says a Jetsam and Flotsam on it. And this was from a set that was all different types of animals. And they have this like kind of emulates the collar around the back of it. And then this is their little tag that identifies who they are. Now, this one is a low LE. It's an LE of 250, one of my more rare, authentic Disney pins. And I love how detailed you can see their yellow eyes, because Flotsam and Jetsam each have one white eye and one yellow eye. And so I do love that that is very present in that pin. Moving on, here's another open edition pin. This went along with, I believe, this collection here. It was part of that collection. This is an open edition pin from 2011, and I think that it looks like they are up to no good and being very mischievous, which, of course, they're villain sidekicks, so they are doing what they do best, but such a unique and interesting pin. I like how detailed their faces are. I just feel like a lot of these Flotsam and Jetsam pins are so well done. Now, moving on to my favorite Flotsam and Jetsam pin. Oh my goodness. Now, the detail in this pin is stunning. I think that they had all of the details just perfectly so. This is a fantasy pin. I like how Ursula is looking down upon her little evil friends and grinning and conspiring with them almost. It's so interesting. But she is in a crystal ball because the feet of the crystal ball are here at the bottom. And then Flotsam and Jetsam are around her with their little tails around the back. Now, this is called Madame Ursula. It's an LE of 75. I do not know who the fantasy pin seller is. If you happen to know, if you would please leave that information down below. I would love to purchase more pins from this fantasy pin seller because they did such an incredible job on that pin. Moving on to another pin. This is actually a Disney Studio Store Hollywood pin, an LE of 400, another low LE for authentic pins, which is kind of exciting. I've got a lot of Ursula low LEs, and it's got Flotsam. One of them is behind her, which I think is just super silly. He's like, what you doing? I think he might be jealous of his brother getting some love from Ursula. It's a unique and interesting pin in a different form, and it really accentuates her booty Such a cool pin. Now, this pin was picked up, I believe it was last year. I think this was last year's Halloween pin. And it's got one of the boys there, Flotsam or Jetsam. I don't know the difference between the two of them, full disclosure. And, oh, I'm sorry, this is 2018. So this was the 2018 Trick or Treat pin. I did feel like this definitely belonged on the regular pin board. How cool is the image inside of that hinge pin? She looks so evil. She's holding the shell ready for Ariel's voice. And the other eel, either Flotsam or Jetsam, is on the inside, and there's like little bubbles everywhere. But I just thought that the coloration of this really matched the Flotsam and Jetsam area of the pin board, so I thought it made sense for it to go there. Now we're going to move up towards this side and go to the voice section and also the Vanessa section of my pin board. So we have this really cool shell pin. This was from I wouldn't call it a booster set, but it was from a 4-pack of emblems from the film. So it came with this. It came with like the flower that she put in Daddy's hair, a dingle hopper, and then one more. I don't recall the last one, but that was an open edition that was available inside of the parks. Now we're moving on to one of the only crossover pins that we have in this collection. I think there may be one more here, but this is Vanessa as Constance Hatchaway from the Haunted Mansion. So I have a huge weakness for black and white pins. I'm starting a black and white pin collection, and that was kind of at the peak of like me deciding that I wanted to do that. So this may be removed from this pin board and moved over to my black and white pin collection. But anyway, she is holding a hatchet, and also there is Vanessa and Eric at the top of the cake. And then as you can see below, there's a trunk and also a picture frame of Eric and a picture frame of Ursula. Very reminiscent of Constance Hatchaway's attic. I call it the attic. I don't know if it's technically an attic, but I call it an attic space in the Haunted Mansion. Now, moving up here, this I feel is one of my most stunning Vanessa pins or Ursula pins that I own. This was a Yo-Yo Pin Star Fantasy pin, and it came as a set with Ariel, and they set upside down, so Vanessa is right side up and then Ariel's upside down or vice versa. Such an interesting pin design, but if you are looking for some stunning fantasy pins, I would definitely check out Yo-Yo Pin Star. Now, something that I want to point out on this, I'm going to take it off the pin board actually, so I can show it in a little bit more detail, but the shell has like this really pretty golden element in it. And this is what the back of Yo-Yo's Yo-Yo Pin Stars or Yo-Yo's Alley pins look like. It's got like this really cool flower on the back. It's a limited edition of 50, and I was so lucky to be able to get my hands on this, especially because it is the most perfect image of Vanessa ever. This is an authentic Disney pin as part of the Little Mermaid 30th anniversary collection. This is an LE of 300. Again, another low LE with Ursula. I purchased this pin and I had someone pick it up for me, and I'm going to be very honest, I don't feel like it's very well made. Vanessa is pin on pin element. Let me take it off so I can show you a little bit more detail. I just feel like the image of her nose and also the detail in Vanessa's face is just really off. Like it looks like a fake pin to me. And I felt like they had a really good opportunity to make this pin really beautiful, and it just kind of missed the mark for me. So it's a D23 Expo LE of 300 pin. It is what it is. I mean, I'm not mad about it. It just, I feel like it could have been a little bit better. But anyway, the 2019 Halloween pin, I picked this up while I was in Disneyland last year for the Halloween party. Now, this is a spinner pin, so I'm going to take it off of the backing so you can see this. So here we have Vanessa, and then you spin it, and you have Ursula holding the shell. Boop.
I like to keep it on the Vanessa side just because I have a Vanessa portion of my pin board that has a lot of Vanessa pins, and so I like to just keep them all together. And since she is an option, since she's so unique, I decided to keep the Vanessa portion on the outside. Now, moving on, this is another Rival Reflections pin. This is from Disney Chris, the fantasy pin seller. Again, such a beautiful pin. And in the background, you have Prince Eric's castle. Ariel, oh, I mean, she's my favorite character, so I obviously love her so much. But can we talk about how stunning Vanessa looks in this? Like, they did her makeup and everything so well in this pin. I am always so impressed by Disney Chris pins. This particular pin was an LE of 100. Now, here's a pin that was from Loungefly. I'm going to take it off so I can show you what it does. I purchased this at Box Lunch, and it has a lenticular design. So here's Ursula, and then there is Vanessa. And I keep this in the Vanessa portion of my pin board again because she's such a unique character, and I like if she's available to display her when I can. I do enjoy this pin. Most Loungefly pins, I have to say, in my opinion, are not the best quality. I think they're improving their quality of pins, but I really, really enjoy that pin just because it's so dynamic. This is a Vanessa pin that was actually from a Loungefly mystery box set that they came out with for the Little Mermaid 30th anniversary. And if you're interested in seeing that unboxing, I'll link it up above and down below. And if you guys opened any of those pins, you'll have to let me know what you think about Loungefly pins. I'm still kind of on the fence about liking them and not liking them. They have really, the last few sets that I opened, which were from last year, full disclosure, they were very inconsistent with sizing and details. Like, some of them looked like they were really well thought out, and then some of them looked like they were slapped together, and then the sizing was all different. It was very strange. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. We're moving on. So here is the next silhouette pin. This silhouette pin is obviously the Vanessa Silhouette Pin from the same fantasy pin designer as the Ursula pin that was listed down below. This one is so cool. I think the details on this one are even better than the details on the one below. Some details that I think are really cool. It has like amethyst rhinestones in it, and then it's got this like beautiful, like iridescent purpley green seaweed that's like going through the area here. And on the Ursula one, it's just vines. So I thought that was just such a cool element. And then there's some tentacles there, and then the contract and Ariel's voice kind of escaping. And you can really see the stained glass elements here. Such a pretty pin. Here is another fantasy pin, and this one happens to feature Ariel, but it is meant to have all of the colorations of the villains. And they had an entire collection, this fantasy pin collector had an entire collection of the heroines being surrounded by the coloration of their villains, which I thought was really interesting. Also, Ariel's in the blue dress. Cannot pass that up. Next, another Rival Reflections from Disney Chris. Now, I am a big fan of how stylized and how 80s Ariel's dress is. You'll have to let me know if you hated or loved her wedding dress. I think it's so great. I think it's so dated, and I'm so into it. But anyway, Ariel looks so stunning in her dress. I love that they added glitter detail to her side of the dress, mainly because she steals the show. She's the queen. And obviously she's wearing her crown, also sparkly. And then Vanessa looking so jealous and so angry. Again, an LE of 100. The last Vanessa pin is here. And this is such a cool and interesting pin. This is from Yo-Yo Pin Star, also known as Yo-Yo's Alley. That's her website name. I will link her down below. But how interesting is this pin? So it is King Triton as a poor unfortunate soul. Ariel is in transition to a poor unfortunate soul. Look at her hair. So she's a pin on pin element. And then we have Vanessa holding King Triton's trident. I just want to do a little detail of this.
such a huge and interesting pin. I just purchased this on a great discount from Yo-Yo, and it's truly an interesting and beautiful pin. The back of this pin says, "Don't underestimate the importance of body language, limited edition of 35. Respect. I love that. Beautiful. And then moving on, we have another small fantasy pin. This was given to me by my friend Robin at Oh Hello Robin. She gave me this pin last year during the Boo Ball, which was a really, really fun Disney box swap that I did last year, and I'm also going to be doing this year. But this is basically the Disneyland D, or the Disney D, that is Disney bounding as Ursula. And we have King Triton's crown and trident. We've got the contract, flotsam and jetsam. We have lots of little poor unfortunate souls at the bottom. But I have a lot of these Disney Ds. I enjoy them so much, so I'll be sure to link them down below. You'll have to let me know down below also if you collect fantasy pins. I know that there are some people that are very much only want authentic pins. I have fallen down the fantasy pin rabbit hole, and I'm not getting out anytime soon. So here is another fantasy pin that I have that is a Ursula and King Triton, where it looks like they're about to battle, but I think it's really neat having these like beautiful waves. Also, I love the glitter elements in King Triton's crown. And lastly, we are going to end on the most beautiful pin, the center of my entire Ursula and King Triton pin board. And this is the fairy tale pin from Disney Chris. Now, this is a pin on pin. And what I love is that Ursula's tentacles are the background of the entire pin. And also, my next favorite thing is that Ursula is in her body language pose, which you don't see a ton, and oh my gosh, I'm like living for it. And then we have King Triton looking so joyous. Beautiful Ariel, Flounder, and Sebastian, Scuttle, Eric looking so dreamy, and Max, and they are all together in this stunning pin. This is an Ellie of 50, again from Disney Chris. She made an entire collection of fairy tale pins, and oh my gosh, they were stunning. I purchased the Sleeping Beauty pin for my best friend Nikki, also known as Seriously Introverted. She's also got a channel, I'll link down below. But she's a huge Prince Philip fan, and there's not a lot of Prince Philip pins, and I ended up getting the Sleeping Beauty version of this pin for her. But that is my entire Ursula and Vanessa collection. You're gonna have to let me know down below if we are pin twins. If there are any of these pins that really stuck out in your mind as a really amazing pin. You guys probably know my favorites here. Also, hello, love her. Some great standouts. I had so much fun hanging out with you guys. I hope that you enjoyed this kind of different and unique video. If you enjoyed pin videos like this, you're gonna have to let me know down below, so I'll keep doing them. This was definitely fun to kind of reminisce and go through my collection. It makes me appreciate it so much more when I have to talk a little bit more about it in detail. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Also be sure to subscribe down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. TTFN, bye.